No, stop.
Okay.
Continue.
Right. Just gonna take me a minute to get it.
No worries.
Log in. Go away. All right, Zoom meeting description on Facebook. Where to post on your Zoom meeting. Share to your page. And let's get it on the correct page because I have a bunch. Okay, we're gonna hit go live. Yeah, it's got a minute where it has to.
I'm just here.
Well, the weird thing is I can't see the Zoom right now, so.
Really?
Okay, now it there's. All
Okay,
right.
good.
And we are live. Hopefully it's going to show me the comments. Let's see if we get lucky enough for that. And it's weird because there's a delay. I forget how weird this is. Just giving everybody a couple minutes to get on. Okay, the husband says we're live, so yay.
Was the dog barking on cue, or was that just happened to come right at the end?
That is our taped music that we had taped for my morning show called Breakfast with Spaniels. And those are actually our dogs barking. And we had a friend write the music for us. And the instructions were think of puppies and kittens rolling in the grass and write some happy music.
Love it. And it worked. I got it. But
Yep.
and the dogs barking at the end, I'm actually glad it was a track because I was like, this is just it's too freaky. Almost like
well, the weird thing is a lot of people tell me that in the morning when their dogs hear our music come on, that they start with the crazy. So they do talk. So for those of you who are joining us this evening, I want to introduce my guest, Regan Pasternack. Some of you may know her as an actress. She's a celebrity. Yay. Very cool. But we're not interviewing her this evening because she's a celebrity actress. We're interviewing her because she wrote a great book. And I had the good fortune of being able to read that book and go through it. And the book is called Griffin's Heart, Mourning Your Pet with No Apologies. And this is a subject that is near and dear to many of our hearts. So many of us have lost pets. And my pet losses have been very public because I'm a public figure. And many of you have cried along with me during those losses. And I think some are worse than others, definitely. And sometimes it depends how long you've had them. Sometimes it depends on the type of pet. Sometimes it depends on how they pass from this world, whether you feel that they left the world in a good place, or whether there's so many things that go into our emotions. But Regan, give us a little bit of backstory. First of all, who is Griffin and why is the book titled Griffin's Heart? And why did you write this book?
Mm-hmm. They all kind of go together, the answers to those questions. Griffin was my first pet as an adult. You know, I grew up with tons of animals. He was my first pet as an adult. He was a Devon Rex cat, which I don't know if you know what that is, but they're these.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're just these, they're like monkeys. He was absolutely very dog-like, and he was just my baby. And and I call him my soulmate animal, because we were just completely connected. And it's funny what you were just saying, what, you know, some losses are harder than others, and that goes with humans too, right? It's how do you explain why you love one more than another? Because, you know, Griffin died when he was 7.5. And I, you know, and it was as brutal as any loss I'd ever gone through. So, you know, so that loss ended up becoming for me this complete heartache that I couldn't quite shake. And I started realizing how society often dismisses that pain, and just how we're supposed to just keep going and moving on, which we are. Of course, we're supposed to keep going, but I wasn't addressing how much it was hurting, and it was doing physical ailments to me, as well as just, you know, emotional. And so finally I developed some insomnia. I ended up going to see a doctor. This is way long story short. It's the first it's very beginning of the book where I addressed this, but and that doctor kind of saw right through me. Didn't just give me the sleep medicine that I really needed. She told me that I needed to mourn my cat. And you know, and I told her many other things about my childhood and other things that had happened and in my life. And I'd had quite a lot of drama and a lot of heartbreak in my life. And it was interesting that she zeroed in on the cat. And so, but her taking my pain and my loss seriously was huge for me. And I started journaling a ton and writing out my experiences. And I am a very curious nature. So I started researching every single thing I could on what it meant to lose an animal and what it meant to lose just someone you love, and how do those things relate. And I started learning about mind-body connection and all these other amazing things. And I just kept writing. I kept writing everything I was finding down. So that's how it all started.
And we're going to go through some of the things that you list in the book, because I think one of the tragedies in many of our lives is that people don't take us seriously. And I was lucky enough to work in an industry where my staff, my office friends understood that loss. Yes. Because we dealt with it every single day, and all of us had animals. And I lost my soul dog. And I said, if we get through to this evening without both of us bawling our eyes out and everyone watching bawling their eyes out,
not likely.
But my soul dog, I lost her in a tragic accident, and there was a lot of guilt associated with it. And we're going to talk about that as well. But I showed up. I lost her early in the morning as I was getting ready for work. And I took her body with me to work, and I walked in the door absolutely hysterical. And my staff gathered around. And of course we had to go through what happened, this is awful. And I was just a blubbering mess. Now, I'm a veterinarian. I've got an entire book of surgery and appointments for the next 12 hours. Mm-hmm. And yet I am a blubbering mess over my dog. And because of my job, my staff gathered around and said, you are not working today. You are in no condition to work today. And every one of your clients will understand why you cannot possibly physically be here today. Mm-hmm. So I was very lucky. And one of the things in your book is you said, well, I just had to soldier through. I showed up for work. I did what I needed to do. I was there in body, but my mind was not there. And I think that's so important, because how many people have a job where there's a built-in time span that you most job descriptions say, well, if you lose, an immediate family member, you get this many days. If you lose, a once removed family member, you get this many days. If you lose a pet, you don't get 3 minutes.
You got it. It's so true. And I mean, listen, that's a whole other thing, but I'm so all for mental health days, or mental health is everything. And yeah, so that's a huge thing. And so I felt like I started learning that, and I believe this is that we are responsible to cultivate our own space for that. And that was why the book ended up not just being a book. It's, if you look through it, you see it's very, very interactive, and it's a keepsake is what it really is. It's a tribute. It's a way to kind of tribute to your animal. And that's why I did that, because you feel so incomplete. And especially when you lose one that really, really meant so much to you. I mean, they all mean so much to you, but there's just sometimes you have this different kind of connection, this different hole that gets left when they're gone. And so, yeah, it's up to us to really cultivate that and give ourselves, even if it's 5 minutes. We're all busy. I'm a member of the busy club. I totally get it. No, I cannot cry, and I will not cry because it's getting crazy. But one of our dogs just passed away, who I'd had for 14 years. But he just passed away, the last month. And so I've been working through my own book with this loss, going through each step and making sure I cultivate that time and space, because my God, he deserved it. And I deserve it. I deserve to have that mental health and space, because I'm still not over it at all, but at least I'm working through, I'm writing down all these memories I have. I give tons of prompts throughout the book, and there's spaces for photos. I always have one beside me, always. I have, there's a photo of him eating in the grass, and yeah, so it's important for me to honor him, and that's, there's no closure for people or animals, I've learned. But there is a moving forward, and there's finding meaning and beauty and learning. So that's what I'm trying to get across these days.
Right. So at the beginning of the book, and as we work through the book, I want to talk about different parts of it, but as we're working through the book, it is not just a story, it is a workbook to help people work through their grief. And there is no timeline on this. You may have lost a pet 20 years ago that is still just weighing heavy on you, that you have not really dealt with that grief. Maybe it was, an accident that maybe you should have, could have, might have, think you should have prevented. Maybe it was, you think you should have pursued more medical treatment, or you didn't catch it soon enough. There's so many things that go through our mind, but a lot of us have not dealt with grief that we've been holding on to for so many years. So at the beginning of the book, you talk about, first of all, meditating and finding some quiet space to really sit and think and connect, and allow yourself to just kind of drift and think about them, but then also talk about journaling. And that kind of hit me, because I don't really journal, but I blog. And
Same thing.
One of the things that I have done with a lot of our pets that have passed, when my horse died, I had him for 22 years. He died at 33. And when he died, I lost a part of my soul. He had been with me through so many personal traumas and emotional dealings. And he was always I could go to the barn and I could just sit with him, talk to him, go for a ride. And that one hit me to the core. And I actually had to take a break from my Facebook Live for about a month and a half. I could not even fathom talking to people about their animals when I was so deeply lost with the loss of that guy. But one of the things I did is I wrote this beautiful blog about him, and there was an old picture of me at a horse show with him that had been lost. One of our cats had urinated on it.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Talk about tragedy.
Oh my God.
My absolute favorite picture of him. My husband found the photographer. Now we're going back over a decade. He found the photographer, made her go through millions of negatives from all those years and find the photo and have it redone for me. And then here's the funny part of the story. I had the horse cremated. And for those who have never had a horse cremated, a lot of us have had our animals cremated, and we get these little tiny boxes back. A horse, it's a footstool. He literally is a footstool. So when the box came, first of all, he weighs, I don't know, 50 pounds. He's hard to pick up, and it has a space for the picture. So my husband got the picture and we put the picture in there, and we moved recently, and the 50-pound footstool of a horse came with us. And I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was just sort of, what am I doing with this?
I get it.
But the lengths that we go to, and it brought so much healing to me to have that picture that meant so much. And while it wasn't a journal, it was a blog about how much he meant to me and how much fun we had and how important he was to me. And it's very important for anybody who has not written about your pet. I highly recommend it. We see more of this with social media now. We see a lot of people that they'll say, oh, my so-and-so just crossed the Rainbow Bridge, and then they'll write a long piece. And I don't know that we're really expecting other people to spend 10 minutes reading this long piece, but it is cathartic for us.
I always read them. Always. I do too. Because I first of all, I just love people who love their animals. And I loved what you just said. And just the awkwardness of getting this giant urn back. But I would have done the exact same thing. And horse people, because I'm not as familiar. I mean, I love horses. I love every single animal. But I've been hearing from horse people, and I have really learned how connected, that animal for some reason is almost soothes something deeper inside of you. Almost, I'm learning about it, and it's actually scientifically proven. It's a real thing. Horses are incredible. But that to say, this is what I have learned. I have learned that I have a chapter at the beginning that says, where does the pain go? Because if we can pretend, we can distract, we can go to work, we can do that stuff, and sometimes we don't have a choice. But if we don't deal with it, it goes somewhere. Where does it go? Does it go into our mind? Does it go into our body? Where does it go? And I remember with Griffin, I felt this shattered glass feeling in my heart, and I really did, and it just wasn't going away, and it manifested into many other not fun things. And so, so I really did start learning about, they say it's like it's a buzz phrase now, but the lean in thing, and how that, what we resist persists. And I say 5 million times throughout the book, the way out is through. So instead of avoiding the pain, explore the pain, and listen. This is a heavy topic that we're talking about, but in my mind, when I was writing, every day I thought, I tried to keep my intentions of what I wanted the book to be so clear. And it's not a heavy book. That's the other part. That's the part. I mean, there's moments where you cry, and there's moments, but it really is about, they talk about cognitive therapy, which is rewiring the way we think about things. And we can rewire the way we think about grief, and rewire the way we think about the end is so hard when we lose someone. I always say someone we love, because it doesn't matter if it's an animal or a person. And if you can remember that it's all the pain is about the love, and the love was the whole thing. The grief, the pain is only the end, and we don't need to stick on that part. I mean, we don't. It's inevitable. That is inevitable. We're all gonna live and die, and it's not morbid. It's just reality. And so, if we can get back to that love, you learn so much. And so that's why the middle of the book, I do a ton of I call it active remembering, and there's, I found these exercises that I started learning about the right and left hemispheres of our brains, and how the right hemisphere is so creative and the left is so analytical. And there's a book called Drawing for the Right Side of Your Brain. And I loved this book. Everybody should read this book. It's so brilliant. And
my husband loves that book.
Oh, really? So did he also read My Stroke of Insight? It's the very similar thing.
Yep. He's a right side brain. I'm a left side brain. He's an artist. He's an architect. He draws pretty pictures.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. Well, so in the act of remembering, I do an exercise where we draw an upside down drawing of our I call them beings throughout the book. So we draw an upside down picture of our pet, and it's to access the less analytical side. So it doesn't matter if you're a terrible artist, you can be brilliant or terrible. It's about accessing a different part of ourselves. And so many people have reached out about that chapter, so that's why I bring it up. And this woman wrote me the other day. Actually, I just posted her photos on the Instagram memorial that I started. But she wrote me saying, thank you for the resource. I was so nervous about the creative part because I'm not a creative person, but when I started writing a poem about her dog, oh my gosh. And she's like, and it just flowed out of me. So of course I'm like, well, send me the poem. What is this poem? I go outside into our kitchen after reading this, sobbing, read it to my husband, he's sobbing. And so I'm like, I said, I need to post this. I really would love your permission. She's like, of course. And this poem is so beautiful. And the fact that she got to access that and write this poem, this person who doesn't consider herself creative, who was in such deep, deep grief for her dog.
What's the Instagram page?
Well, that's our memorial that we've just started. That is at Griffin's Heart Book.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta see her poem. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's called Tethered. And oh my gosh. So yeah, and there's been a bunch of those letters. And the thing is, how healing is it, and how beautiful and mysterious really is it that you're not creative, but you somehow wrote this beautiful tribute to your animal. And it's just it's rewarding. And I think it's such an important way to untangle and lean in, as they say, to those hard feelings, and see what happens when you get through those hard feelings. It doesn't mean it's not sad, but there's so much beauty. There's so much beauty, right? So that's what I try to keep in my mind, because I feel it all too.
So one of your chapters is called How to Get Unstuck on Why. Mm. And I think why, for a lot of us, it's not even why did this person die? Why did this animal die? Why did this illness happen? Why, a lot of whys in the world. Mm-hmm. Can we get unstuck on why? And is it through that creative path? Is it just moving through what we're dealing with?
So there's many ways, but for me, I found that to be, why did this happen? Why did I let them out? Why did I feed them the wrong? These are questions that we'll never know the answers to, most of them. So it's all that stuff. For me, what was helpful was all the cognitive behavioral therapy, which was rewiring the way we think. I use it for anxiety. I have horrible anxiety about certain stuff that I'll never completely get out, but rewiring the way you think about it is, and so changing the word why to how, and re-changing the question to how. So how can I learn from that? How can I serve another animal better? How can I pay tribute to, when you start changing, just change the question and take out the why for so many of those, because you'll never have the answer. And it's almost like a helpless place to be in when you're in that. And it really is it's just about, and that's why I do believe you don't just read it, you got to write down, and you can write it right inside the book, but you write out the answers, because there's something different and more tangible, or concrete actually is a better word, about than just thinking something. But if you're writing it out as well, and then you can go back to it when you start getting back in that cycle of asking yourself those questions as well. All that stuff just worked for me. So that's all I can say.
I would agree with that. And it's sort of like, I'm a list maker. So it's sort of generally in life, if you say I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, the chance, and you just think that, the chances of it actually getting done are pretty little. If you write it down, the chances increase. If you tell someone else, the chances increase even more. If you tell a lot of people, it gets even bigger.
This is proven. This is not just, this is actual proof. This stuff is proven. So it's really interesting. And yeah.
It is. So taking the time, and that's why it was interesting, because I went on Amazon and I looked at the reviews of the book, and one person gave it a bad review and said, the book's like 250 pages long, but half of it is just these blank pages with lines on it to write stuff. And I was sort of like, that's kind of the point.
It's so funny, because that was my only bad review. And
exactly.
And of course I got hung up on it because I'm a new author, and I'm like, but that's not the point. That's why. And of course, then I went into a full, but I was like, I almost wrote them a letter saying you can have your money back, but that's all on purpose. That's all on purpose. And the other part of that, I was like, if you hate the book, you can hate the book. So far, I haven't gotten one person who said that. That person also said they didn't even finish reading. They didn't even get through the book at all, because I think they would have learned very fast that those pages aren't just there. They're completely there for a reason. And as a matter of fact, I'm such a perfectionist that I agonized over every line and every page. And something that I had found when I was in grief was, there are some brilliant writers out there, and there's some brilliant doctors and people, there wasn't a ton at the time on pet loss, but I found the books that I was reading, even though they had some great information, too heavy for how I was feeling at that time. They were too, and I'm a huge reader. I'm a nonstop chronic reader, I say. But I felt when I was in that place, I needed to take a breath and process and think. And so those things stuck in my head. I thought, it's too much for a person who's in pain to not have a break, and then read this one little chapter, write out your part. And there are some parts like on guilt, a lot of people suffer from tons of guilt from it. So those are chapters that I don't want to just get into another big giant chunk of a thing right after. I want the person to be able to sit with what they've read, sit with what they've learned, put a photo in the next page, write something in the prompts. And I do say, if you don't like one of the pages of one of these chapters, one of these things I've written doesn't speak to you, I tell you at the beginning how to use this book, print out a bunch of your photos, stick it on that page. This book is supposed to work for you. It's supposed to be so personalized, So, I was so annoyed. And then I realized, what? There's something fishy about that review. There is something fishy about that review, because they didn't say they didn't get it right. If they were like, I just don't like this book, this writer sucks, I would have had nothing to say. But what they said wasn't accurate. It's just not true.
Well, it's funny because after I was looking at your reviews and it made me chuckle, because I was like, well, they kind of missed the whole point of the book. But then, silly me, I was looking at one of my books, and there were some new reviews that just came up recently. And so I'm reading them to my husband, and there was a 1-star review that said it was too simplistic. And I'm talking about the Yin and Yang cookbook. She said it was too simplistic. The next review right below it was a 4-star that said it was a little over my head.
You can't please everybody. Yeah, I feel like there's, what, I one of my favorite memoirs, not animal related at all, but is that book Educated by Tara Westfield, something. Anyways, it's brilliant. It is such a brilliant book. I keep running into people who did not like that book. And it just made me, I'm like, remember that. If you don't like Educated, if people don't like Educated, people are not going to like anything. So, you can't win everybody, right?
No, you cannot. So you brought up guilt, and I want to talk about that for a second. And those who have been following me for a long time have heard this story. So I started at the beginning by saying that I had lost my soul dog to a tragic accident, and then my staff was nice enough to give me the day off. But my husband and I both carried the guilt of the loss of that dog for a long time.
Mhm.
And it was stifling. The guilt was stifling. And at the time we had 7 or 8 dogs. We had a bunch of cats, we had horses, the whole 9 yards. But we really had not dealt with it. And interestingly, we were invited to go to a red carpet thing up in New York City for a radio show and movie production. But anyway, we were up there for the pre-event, and there was this woman who was probably in her 80s, who her daughter had brought her in from Minnesota. I don't even know if the woman had ever flown before. She didn't have a website. She didn't know how to use a computer, but she was an animal communicator. And so my husband and I are there, and we're dressed. He's in a tux and I'm all dressed up, and we've got our 2 of our dogs with us, and they're dressed in, ball gown and tux.
Oh, I love it.
So we went over to sit and talk to her, and we each have a dog in our arms. And I sat down in the chair, and my husband stood next to me, and she looked at us and she said, "You don't want to talk about these dogs that you have with you, do you?" And the tears started to come, and I shook my head. And she said, "You lost a dog. It's been a while. You have tremendous guilt. And I want you to know that she has told me that you have got my dog, the she."
But did they knew it was this person knew it was a she.
Yes.
Wow.
She knew everything. She was incredible.
That's amazing.
She said, "She needs you to let go of this guilt. This guilt is holding her from moving forward. And she cannot be free in her new energy space," which you talk about, the energy and physics and laws of energy and the afterlife. And she said, "As long as you are holding that guilt, she cannot be free." Now, this was probably a year and a half later from when she had died. And as soon as she said that to me, the guilt instantly left. The reason being, it was okay for me to feel guilty and drag myself down. It was not okay for me to drag her down. Yeah. And so every once in a while, and it's been how many years, honey? 10, 12 now. And every once in a while, a pang will hit where the guilt wants to come back, and you just want to, if only. But ever since that was said to me, the guilt disappears like that. Because
I need to call this woman.
I wish we could, because I said to her, it was the most amazing instant in my life.
That's wonderful. I'm just like, this is such a good story. Wow.
It is a really good story. And interestingly, a couple of years after that, my husband and I went on a rescue run, drove a van from New Jersey to Missouri to go to a dog auction, where we were charged with driving 20 dogs that were being bought back from an auction. They were breeder dogs that had been abused and mistreated. But we were supposed to get them and bring them back and do their vet care and everything. So I come home from work. My husband's got the van all packed with crates and leashes and food and everything that we could possibly need to go rescue 20 dogs halfway across the country. And in this rental van that he had gotten, there was one of those handles up top where you pull yourself up into the seat. And hanging from that handle was that dog's collar, because she had originally come from that auction. She was rescued through that auction as a puppy mill dog. And so he brought the collar. Now, no one knew that we were on this trip. It was a very secret mission. that Hugh and I were going to get these dogs. So we couldn't publish anything, but my sister knew that we were going. And I guess I sent her a picture, or I texted her and said something about having Laura's collar with us. And she said, oh my gosh, you have to unhook the collar, because I had it clasped on to the handle. And it was, hanging like you would put something on your rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to unhook the collar. When they pass, you have to leave the collar unhooked. You don't leave it in a circle closed, because they can't run free. Now that was
God. Oh my God. You need to know that I'm like, the second I get, because I have a little tribute for Jed, our dog out there. And his collar, his beautiful king collar is out there circled, and he needs to run free because he hasn't been able to walk for so long. And that's my only piece that I think maybe
we all close those collars. But that was the second person who had told me my dog can't run free because I'm holding gilt and I'm keeping that collar closed.
Interesting.
So it's little things. And my sister is a pretty good animal communicator. She won't admit it. She's actually very good. She is a pet physical therapist, does craniosacral therapy. Really cool stuff. So she's pretty in touch with a lot of this stuff. And that brings me to one of the next things, because she was the one who told me about this. Ho'oponopono. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Tell us what that is.
I might be pronouncing it wrong too, but I think it's Ho'opono. Ho'opono. White woman here, trying my best, trying to say the right thing. But I find it just so beautiful. I mean, I have a whole chapter on guilt and my experience with it, and just all the people that I kept talking to who that was such a common theme for some reason. Not everybody has it, but so many people do. And it's called Oy the Guilt, that chapter. And I do talk about just things that methods I learned to release it. And part of it is also, it's acceptance. It's acceptance, and that's, I say it better when I'm writing it down than saying it right now. But and then I do the Ho'opono, because which I find that it's this native, it's a Hawaiian, actually. I don't know if it's called a prayer, but it's a practice of forgiveness. And it's just basically, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. And you can say it in that order, is the original order, but you can say it in any order you want. And it's supposed to have, elders believe it has magical healing, effects of releasing the pain. And I think it can, because I think that, but the secret is to allow yourself to feel the pain at the beginning of while you say it. If you just say it, nothing happens. But if you really feel it, and I also say, who are you forgiving? You forgiving yourself. You're forgiving whoever hurt you. You're forgiving, and forgiving doesn't mean letting whoever off the hook. It's just accepting that this is what happened and this is the way it is, and what's a better way to move forward. And it is very freeing, and it's really interesting. I don't know why I say this throughout the book. I'm not a religious person. I'm an open-minded person. I love learning about people's beliefs. My dog is going mental behind me. Sorry, I can hear her like snorting and going mental. Yeah, but it's this beautiful way to let go of some of that.
Absolutely. Now, you don't talk about this in the book, I don't think. And at the time that you lost Griffin, you did not have any children yet. Do you think that this same process could or should be used by children who have lost a pet that they love?
Yes, I'm getting asked that question so much. And actually, a children's book writer has just asked to collaborate to make another version of the book for children. And I'm seriously considering it, because I'm getting asked that question so much. And I do have a little boy, he's 9 now. And so Griffin's Heart is not for kids. I mean, it's PG. There's nothing, there's nothing crazy in there, but I just, maybe, there's some really soulful kids out there who might completely get all the concepts, but there's a way to interact with your children if you have a child throughout the book, and because of all the photos that you can place and the drawing exercise and music exercises. But I feel like for me, what my son watching me, knowing I wrote this book for Griffin, and seeing me openly mourn our animals that we have lost, and my humans. I lost my mom as well, and I try to, show him that we're not supposed to just get over things. We aren't. We're supposed to feel them, and we're supposed to get through them. And he knows, if I get sad about something, and if he's sad about something, and he's been there when we said goodbye to our last two animals. And so while the book isn't specifically for children yet, you can participate with them, but the idea of the whole book is allowing all of it to be real and all of it to be there. And I tell my son, I say, like when I go, I don't want you to just forget about me. I don't. I want to be kept in your memory and your heart. And that is what Griffin's Heart is. It's a complete way to, it's a tribute. So hopefully he'll have a better understanding of how to deal with death because of the book. And hopefully the readers will have a better way of talking to their kids about it, maybe. I don't know, long-winded answer, but that's my answer.
Well, it just made me think when my son was my daughter would have been 2 or 3, so he would have been 6 or 7. Our Doberman died. And this was the dog that they had. Well, actually, I had to put him to sleep, but he was on his way out. But
yeah.
They had grown up with him. He taught them to walk. They, learned to stand up by climbing up the dog. And he would sit by their stroller when they were taking a nap and guard them in the front yard. He was just the most wonderful dog. Wow. And when he passed, I did what I always did at the time. I took the dog to work. I put the dog, actually, it was my first pet of my own that I had to put down. And
I cannot imagine.
I left him at the office for cremation, and I came home, and I guess we hadn't really talked to the kids about it. And that afternoon, my son's best friend, they're still best friends. They're 32 years old now, and they're still best friends, came to me and he said, Andrew's pretty upset that you left Astro, I think it was Astro, at the office. He wants you to bring Astro home to bury him. Oh, okay. So I looked at my husband at the time and said, you need to go dig a very large hole, because it was a 125-pound Doberman.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had to go back to the office and get the frozen dog and bring him home.
Oh my God. How do you do this?
But my kids, what they made me realize is that they didn't have closure. They saw me take him to the office and he was in bad shape. So they understood what was going on and why. But they didn't have that closure. And that's one of the things you talk about is memorializing. They needed to see us dig the hole. They needed to see us bury him. They needed to plant flowers. They needed to be able to go out and sit and look at the area where he was. And over the years, we've buried horses, we've buried dogs, we've buried cats. At our farm now, my poor husband had to bury a chicken and a chick. So, and then we did finally start cremating everyone. And so when we moved from New Jersey to North Carolina a few months ago, my horse came in his footstool, but we have a box with all the boxes of ashes of a couple dozen animals. And
all in one box?
No, they're all, we have a big moving box with all these little
the separate
boxes, their little names on them. And the thinking is that we know this, we bought 23 acres, we're building a house. This is our final place. And so the thinking is that we brought all of them with us, and now we're going to spread their ashes on the farm, or perhaps bury their ashes on the farm. And now that we're kind of reaching that point, I don't know if I can do it. We may just continue to have the shrine of 25 boxes. I don't
we're creeping up. It's getting a little morbid in my house, but I don't care. And I now tell me, you want to see how this is how my mind works. I'm thinking, how do I tell my husband that I want to make sure I'm buried with those? I really do. At least a few of them that I just could not. I don't want them to just float into I want them with me. So I don't know. But yeah, no, it's creeping up there. It's becoming a bit of a graveyard in my house right now.
Well, it's a little odd, but so we were talking about
people, not to me.
Well, there's in the South, funerals are different than they are up north, and a lot of funerals are still held in people's homes rather than a funeral parlor. And a lot of families down here have family graveyards. And so we were talking about it, and I said, well, my mother has a plot back in New Jersey for, 30 years from now, and will be next to her parents and my father. And that's how that's been planned. And I've always said, I don't want that. I want to be cremated. So now my husband are like, well, geez, do we just sprinkle our ashes and all theirs? And, my daughter may have a lot of fun with just, box after box. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
haven't figured that out yet. I'm going to stick around for a few more years.
Good. That's a good idea. Just stick around.
Okay. Regan, I'm so thankful you wrote this book. I think, one of the problems is that people like us, we either need to buy 30 of these books because we have lost so many. And if we want to go back and do the exercises with every one of them, again, now we're going to add to our boxes. We're going to have all these books.
That's true.
But I don't have a physical copy of the book. Can you hold up a physical copy of the book?
Of course. Yes. So this one is so jam-packed right now. It comes in this case. It's upside down. It comes in this case it's a very sturdy slip case so that you can, when you slide it in, it keeps all your memories and everything intact, because they get full. They get really full. And at the back, so there's places throughout the book for the journaling and the photos, and then in the back there's also, I put an envelope in the back so that I have a sympathy card in here. I wrote everybody a postcard with me and Griffin on the front, and I wrote everybody a little note. That's a little surprise that people get in the back, but I have actually I have Jed's fur in the back. So it's so sweet. So yeah, that's it. And then this is the cover. There's a heart with a Band-Aid, and that's me. This was actually based off a painting my husband painted for me after Griffin died. That meant so much to me. So while I was writing, I knew we had to incorporate it into the book, because it's kind of what it's all about. Yeah.
Awesome. It's really great. So I do know it's available on Amazon. Is it available on other online outlets, bookstores, from your website? Where's the best place for people to go?
Definitely go to griffinsheart.com and check it out. And, you can see more. We're actually revamping all of that right now, but you can still get the gist. And yeah, there's a couple other stores, people who I've just done interviews with who've started selling it. So, but the easiest thing is probably Amazon. I'll always update you guys if I'm at Regan Pasternack on Instagram. And then we have our memorial page, which is Griffin's Heart Book, at Griffin's Heart Book. So those are those places. But yeah, griffinsheart.com is probably your fastest link.
Okay. And I'll make sure that Gwen gets all of that posted on our social media and our website, because I think because of the industry that I have worked in for the past 37 years, I have seen so many clients, and I can think of so many people off the top of my head that have not been able to deal with the grief of losing that one special pet. Like I said, my husband and I have lost so many in our time together, but there's always one or two special ones that even though you miss every single one of them and
I know exactly what you mean. I
drop
think
of a hat, you could cry about any one of them. But they also bring smiles to your face when you remember them. So, but I know that there are people that are struggling, and it is very difficult sometimes to find other people that are willing to listen to you. And friends start to drift away when all you talk about is the pet that you lost 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, and you cannot move past that. And it's not that we're trying to forget them. We're trying to really remember them and remember them in a positive way, in a good way, and channel our grief into something that is beneficial to us instead of being an anchor.
Exactly. And it's a real thing. It can be done. I'm seeing it all over again now that I lost another one. So yeah, there's a way to find meaning, and they deserve it. They deserve all that. So
absolutely,
I feel like I remember them that way.
Well, Regan, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I'm glad you're feeling better. When you canceled on Friday night, I have to tell you, I was feeling really rough on Friday. My granddaughter brought a cold home from daycare, and I was just like, oh, thank God.
Good. I'm so good. Well, my son had brought home a stomach flu from camp the weekend before, and I thought I was in the clear. And then come Thursday, I was like, oh, I'm not feeling good. And for me to cancel anything, I'm so type A. That was.
Me too. So, yeah. And my daughter was like, well, you just want to do something else? And I'm like, no, I just want to go to bed.
Exactly. And I pretty much went to bed the whole weekend. Yeah. So
Tuesday's much better.
Yes, it's way better.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to reschedule with us, because I really appreciate this.
Anytime. I've loved this, actually.
It'll stay up on our Facebook page so that people can go back and watch it. And I'm sure that Gwen will put a link in our email that goes out next week as well. So thank you very much, Regan, and good luck with the rest of your animals.
You too. Stay in touch. I loved talking to you.
Great. Thanks.
Talk to you soon. Okay.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye-bye.